Recently, I've been heavily invested into this wee little indie RPG by the name of Pokémon. You might have heard of it before. Yeah, that's right, I can see those tabs you got open. You can't fool me, buddy. While I personally feel the newer games have been somewhat lacking, the extremely cool people dedicated to creating their own Pokémon, and in some cases, their own region, have always been a major inspiration to me. All this is to say I'm making a Fakemon region. So how exactly does one go about making a Fakemon region? It's a pretty big project, where do you even start? Well, I'll be the first to admit, I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants with this. A lot of the concepts I came up with were a result of me going, hey, that would be kinda cool. And then I jot that idea down in the Essential Fakemon concept book. And yes, I did staple this together during class. But anyway, I've been stalling for much too long by this point. So, without further ado, I present to you the Castone region. So obviously, the first part of making a Fakemon region is to decide exactly what the region will be. And as a stark believer in the philosophy of write what you know, I decided pretty early on that this region would be based off of Canada, more specifically the northwest areas of it. This is mostly thanks to all the really cool plants and wildlife that can be found in this area of the world, so there was a lot to work with in terms of concepts. Anyway, we're soon going to get to what most of you probably clicked on the video for, Castone Starter Trio. But before we get to that, we need a little backstory. Before you receive your starter Pokemon, you're first introduced to your hometown, so obviously I had to design that as well. However, I decided to design this town to be more than just a starting area. It's actually got its own gym, but we'll cover that another time. But for now, welcome to Sapless Town, a simple rural town with a small but tight-knit community. The town was built during an immense drought when most of the plant life had shriveled up. However, one lone sapling managed to survive the drought against all odds. Impressed by the little tree's endurance, the founders decided to build their town with the sapling as a centerpiece. Throughout many generations, they nurtured the tree as it slowly matured into a beautiful giant oak tree, which now provides a home to many of the wild Pokémon. As the tree grew, so did the town, and now this oak tree is considered to be the main attraction of the area, with tourists occasionally showing up to take pictures of it. This town is home to a good handful of other things as well, but we'll have to save that for next time, because for now we're moving on to the starter trio. Among the houses of Sapless Town is the somewhat ramshackle Pokémon Lab. It's here that the local professor of the region, Professor Hemlock, will give new trainers the choice between one of 3 Pokémon to accompany them on their journey. So let's get into those starters, beginning with their base forms. First is the grass starter, Marsupialeaf. Marsupialeaf have an immense amount of energy, and are almost always moving. The leaf pendants around their necks allow them to convert sunlight into energy for themselves. Because of this, they tend to be pretty much comatose during the night or in dim areas where they can no longer absorb energy. This one was admittedly designed with its name first and concept after. It's based on the marsupial family of animals, specifically the kangaroo, as well as photosynthesis. Next is Cremos, the fire starter. These little guys can be pretty mischievous at times, a wee bit tomfoolerish, dare say. These little furnace rats need to ensure that the fire inside of their stomach stays burning in order for their body to continue functioning. In order to do so, they will eat anything and everything that is dry and flammable. This includes housing insulation. So, when traveling alongside a Cremos, it is highly advised to keep a close eye on it. That is, unless you want some very displeased establishment owners suing you for destruction of property. Cremos is based on mice, which are quite a common pest in Canada. It's also based off of wood stoves, hence why it is constantly eating dry, flammable materials in order to keep its fire burning. Finally, there's the water starter, Nudibrine. And I'm not going to even try and hide it, this one is my favorite. I know as a Fakemon creator you're not supposed to have a favorite child, but I do, and it's this one. Anyway, Nudibrine are quite the dim-witted Pokemon, but they're also very friendly and compassionate. It's easy to vent your frustrations to one of these things, as it will have no clue what you're saying, but will try to cheer you up regardless. Nudibrine is based off a variety of nudibranch species, specifically the sea bunny. Nudibranchs are known for their ability to trick predators into thinking they're poisonous through their vibrant colors. For this reason, Nudibrine and its evolutions learn a lot of poison-type moves, despite not being poison types themselves. So, those are the base forms for the starters. Now we can move on to the evolutions. At level 16, Marsupileaf evolves into Wallabud. These guys are significantly more aggressive than their pre-evolutions. If they perceive something as dangerous, they will immediately attack it, regardless of whether or not it was anything close to a threat. By now, their leaf pendant has grown into a bud. This grants them significantly more energy, though they still tire out quickly in low light areas. Not too much to say on the inspiration for this one. Its name comes from wallaby, a close relative of the kangaroo, and the plant segments of its body have grown with age, much like actual plants. At the same level as Marsupileaf, Creamos also evolves into Vermis. While Wallabud's aggression increases upon evolution, Vermis's appetite is what grows when it evolves. Leaving one unattended in a wooden building would be a highly unwise idea. The smoke rising out of its tail has now formed into a shape that somewhat resembles Vermis itself. The tail seems to act in accordance to the Vermis it's attached to, however there have been rumors of Vermis fighting their own tails. The main idea of this design was to emphasize the furnace parts of its body, as well as bridge the gap between the first and final evolution. We will be getting to that final evolution soon, don't worry. Nudibranch also evolves at this level, becoming Diludibranch. It remains fairly dim, even after it evolves, but it gains significantly more strength. This can lead to it unknowingly damaging its trainer's bones while trying to hug them, so when traveling with one by your side, it's a good idea to just stick to fist bumps. The small yellow patch on its chest can light up, and can be flashed on and off to disorient its opponents. Diludibranch takes some inspiration from the blue dragon sea slug with its color scheme. It also has more of a purple hue in reference to that poison thing I mentioned earlier. The bright yellow stripe further ties into how Nudibranchs will use bright colors to ward off their attackers. And in this case, it provides a physical use as well by flashing like a strobe light to ward its potential predators off. And now for the final evolutions. Upon reaching level 34, Wallabud evolves into Witheroo. Though less outright aggressive, these Pokémon are far more threatening than their pre-evolutions. While Marsupileaf are quite peaceful, and Wallabud only attack out of self-defense, albeit on a hair trigger, Witheroo require the life force of others in order to keep their pendant, which is now turned into a flower, alive. Rather than tire out in low-light areas, Witheroo now thrives in them. This is because upon blooming, the pendant gains the ability to absorb nutrients even without the presence of light. Though, this comes at the cost of the flower's health, hence why it starts to wither if not properly nourished. And in true Little Shop of Horrors fashion, the flower's health can only be replenished by taking the life force of the living. Witheroo's tail also grows a mind of its own, and becomes somewhat of a companion to the Pokémon. The flowers on its body are based off of the butterwort, a carnivorous plant that traps and eats insects. And of course, the tail is based off of the Venus flytrap. Also at level 34, Vermis evolves into Invermo. This Pokémon's resemblance to royalty is no coincidence, as it expects others to treat it as such. Thankfully, its newfound egotism also comes with self-restraint. It will no longer go for buildings as a source of food, instead opting to eat the wood of decaying trees. It now commands a total of 3 smokestack tails, each of which can shoot a blast of fire from where their mouths probably should be. And while most people in Pokémon won't cater to its wants, it can take assurance in the fact that its smoked tails will always see it as the king. So if it wasn't obvious from its design, Invermo is based off of Rat Kings. Rat Kings are a phenomenon in which a group of rats will have their tails intertwined and can function as a hive mind. This is why the smokestacks rising from Invermo's tails resemble rats. More specifically, they resemble Invermo itself, alongside its pre-evolutions. Diludibranch also evolves at this level, becoming Gastropool. After being restricted to its slow movement for most of its life, as well as being stuck to the ground, the newfound speed and ability to fly that Gastropool gains upon evolution is often enough to send it into an ecstatic frenzy. They can often be seen doing numerous tricks mid-air and showing off their recently gained maneuverability. In spite of this, they still love the water, and will float around in it at any chance they get. Their ghostly form is mostly comprised of water vapor, and as such, they are extremely light. While still being primarily inspired by nudibranchs, I also gave this Pokemon a snake-like body, both in reference to sea snakes and to complement its ghost typing better. Its head also resembles an axolotl, a detail that was admittedly not intentional, but gives it more ties to various aquatic creatures, which is actually pretty fitting for a water-type starter. So, those are the Castone starters. I'm really looking forward to fleshing out this region, and I've got several more Fakemon concepts I'm excited to finalize, but those will have to wait until next time. If you want, let me know what you think of this trio in the comments. I put a lot of time and effort into making this video, and I would really appreciate any sort of feedback on it. In the next episode of this Fakemon series, I'll be covering some of the early route Pokemon found in this region, as well as some other details of the starting town, so stay tuned for that. All of this is to say I don't know how to end videos, so... outro music.